Hi you guys, welcome, välkomna, добро пожаловать. My name is Salmansa Rogers. Today's Friday and it's another True Crime Stories with Sal. As always, I hope you guys are doing great, had an amazing, productive week, and just, looking forward to enjoying your weekend. So today's case is another solved true crime story, and this one is actually um, a little bit close to home because after the story, I will tell you guys my personal experience and why I think this story is very, very, of course, all of my stories are very important, but this basically brings awareness as well because sometimes we tend to, kind of relax and forget that, people are not always what they seem to be. So, without any further ado, let's jump into today's case. Today's case takes place in Orlando, Florida, and the year is 2015. Out of respect for the victim's family, I will be changing the name of the victim. I will call her Sarah. The perpetrator in this case will be mentioned by his real name. Sarah was 27-year-old at the time of her murder. She was working as a social media manager for this real estate company. She really loved her job. She had a lot of friends, both in her work, her co-workers, and her personal friends. She was very loved amongst all the people that she basically came in contact with. Her family and her were very, very close, and overall, people had just nice things when they described Sarah. She was very fun. She was very beautiful, but don't let the looks fool you because she was very, very smart. On a Friday evening in October, Sarah and a few of her friends went to watch this soccer team, a local soccer team, play, and their team won. So they all decided to head over to a bar or a nightclub slash bar in the area to celebrate with dance and drinks and what have you. And during the night, they, of course, had too much fun, too much alcohol, and around midnight, Sarah's friend Anthony can recall Sarah telling him that she's basically done for the night and she will be heading back home. And according to Anthony, this is something normal. They always, when they went out, they always, went their separate way. Either they meet up later during the night or they just, go home and meet up the next day. And in fact, Anthony and Sarah had a breakfast date the next day to meet up and, eat breakfast together. Saturday morning comes and Anthony is at the breakfast spot where him and Sarah had their little breakfast date. But Sarah never showed up. So Anthony just ordered his breakfast. He ate. He called and texted her a couple of times, but she never answered. But he figured that, they went in pretty hard the previous night. She was pretty drunk. She's probably still asleep because it's still early. She's probably just hangover and then just kind of lost track of time. And, it was nothing to worry about. But around lunchtime, Anthony started to get a little bit worried because he still haven't got any sorry text or any calls from Sarah just explaining why she didn't show up for breakfast. And he actually called two other friends, mutual friends, and they both were like, no, we haven't talked to Sarah since last night. So they all three of them agreed to go and check out Sarah and in her apartment. And just the FYI, briefly forgot to mention at the beginning, Sarah actually moved into this new apartment complex called Uptown Place a few months prior to this incident. It's, I would describe it as a luxury apartment complex. They have a pool, they have a gym, they have a 24-hour security system or security guard on the property. So it's a very like a high-end luxury apartment complex. Upon arriving to Sarah's apartment complex, Anthony and two of her other friends that accompanied Anthony, they first saw Sarah's car in the parking structure in the garage, and the car seemed not to be touched or moved. In fact, she even had a gift in the back seat of the car. She was actually attending a baby shower later that Saturday evening. So the gift for that baby shower was still in the back seat. Nothing was touched. And upon arriving to her third floor where Sarah's apartment was, they were knocking, they were ringing, and no answer, nothing. And this really, really worried the friends. So Anthony decided to call the police right then and there. Around 8 p.m. later that Saturday evening, police, together with the security guard, they enters Sarah's apartment to do a welfare check. As soon as they open the door to the apartment, nothing seems out of the ordinary. As you guys can tell by the pictures here, nothing seems disturbed or out of place, or a struggle or anything occurred in that apartment. But a very, very strong sense or smell of bleach was reeking out of the apartment as soon as they stepped in. So clearly some sort of a cleanup was going on in that apartment because of that bleach smell. The only thing that the police noticed when they stepped into the bathroom was that the toilet seat was completely up. And usually you do that if you have a male company, but police knew that Sarah lived by herself. She didn't have a boyfriend that was living with her or any other male friends or brother, what have you. So that raised a few eyebrows why the toilet seat were completely up. Upon entering the bedroom, they saw that on top of the bed was a duvet cover, like rolled up. And when they further inspect that duvet, they could see some hair sticking out and then an arm, human arm. Inside of that duvet cover was Sarah's dead body. She was strangled to death. Her necklace that she wore was completely tangled up in her hair. Her underwear and her t-shirt or nightgown was torn off her body, and you could see the vibration marks on her thighs from her underwear being pulling off her very aggressively and viciously. She was completely beat up. She had several bruises, and it looked like it was a vicious struggle that occurred inside that bedroom. The forensics team arrived to the apartment. They actually found 2 fingerprints on top of that toilet seat. So remember what I said, the toilet seat was completely up. They found 2 fingerprints inside or like underneath the seat. They also found a used or open condom wrap and a footprint belonging to a size 9 shoe. And underneath the sink, the cabinet door where Sarah was storing her bleach and cleaning products were open as well. So the detectives figured that whoever cleaned up after themselves used Sarah's own cleaning products. They also found male DNA on Sarah's chest, on her body. As you guys can imagine, this completely shocked everyone. Not only did Sarah's friends and family didn't have any suspect that who could ever do this horrible thing to Sarah, the community, the apartment complex, the neighbors were also afraid because they didn't know if a killer was living amongst them, who have done it, should they be afraid, are they next? So police definitely wanted to solve this as soon as possible. So the first person the police start questioning was the security guard that was on duty that Friday night. And according to the security guard, he says, yes, I saw Sarah. She actually came with 2 other girls, but she was very intoxicated. She didn't have any ID or keys on her, but she claims that she lived in the building. At first, he didn't want to let her in because, again, she didn't have any ID or could prove that she lived in the building. And he basically explained to the girls that, sorry, I can't let you in. I need to know, like, if you really live here. Everyone can walk up here and say, I live here, but, like, you need to prove that. But a few minutes after they were talking, another man walked in. A resident inside the building, and with that man, Sarah just like snuck in with him. So the two ladies left, and the security guard went back inside the building to find Sarah to see if she really was a resident or she really, uh, was trying to get to her apartment, like she said. He found her, and according to him, she was trying to punch in her code because their door was a little bit modern. It's not like a regular key. It's kind of like, or I believe it's a key and a code. So since she didn't have any keys on her, she was trying to punch in that code. She didn't remember the code, so the security guard and Sarah went downstairs to the garage to see if she could find her extra spare key. But as soon as they entered the garage doors, according to the security guard, Sarah suddenly remembered the code. And she's like, oh no, forget, never mind, I remember the code. So she rushed back into to the second floor to type in her code. And according to the security guard, he went after her. He saw that she tried to punch it in. It didn't work. So he basically told her that, hey, listen, I'm going to give you a few minutes. And if I come back here at the second time and you're still here, I have to basically kick you out because, I don't know if you really live here or what have you. And then, according to the security guard, a few minutes passed by. He could see Sarah, or he thinks it was her. He's not sure this time because she kind of like changed clothes and he really didn't recognize the clothing that she was wearing the first time. But he's kind of like 80% sure it was her. And she was walking out of the building with an unknown man. He never seen that man before. And that's pretty much it. That's the last time the security guard saw her that evening. After interviewing the security guard, the police start immediately finding out who this unknown man was. So they actually looked over the CCTV footage around the town. So around the bar that she was last seen. And according to the map, it's pretty much 30-ish minutes, depending on fast or how slow you walk, from the bar to the uptown place, Sarah's apartment complex. And according to the CCTV footage, they could see Sarah walking with two individuals. And as soon as they see that, the police release the CCTV footage and to the public to basically have those two individuals come forward. Two ladies came forward and identified themselves as the two people that was walking with Sarah that night. They basically explained that they saw Sarah outside the club and she seemed very intoxicated, talking to strangers. At some point, they thought that she even might have almost gone into a car with some strange men, and they basically felt like, we need to help this girl. So they approached her and asked her, hey, do you want to share Uber? She said yes. And when the Uber arrived, they all three jumped into the Uber. And at a red light, when the Uber stopped at a red light, Sarah was like, oh, there's my apartment. She started pointing at this apartment complex. All three of them walked out, or they asked the Uber to stop. And when they walked to the entrance gate, that's when they were approached by a security guard. The security guard first didn't want to let them in, but then explained to the security guard that, hey, she's very intoxicated. We are basically worried for her safety. You need to help her. Like, she claims that she lives here. Can you please just like take care of her, see that she gets home safely? And then the girls left after a few minutes when they saw Sarah walking into the building. So the security guard and the two girls' statement both checked out. They both were kind of in sync with each other. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but police still didn't know who this mystery man was. So the police actually had Sarah's iPad, and the iPad was synced to her phone messages, so they could see like the last messages or the people that Sarah messaged that night. And around 5 a.m., she messaged a man or a guy named Ben. So they bring Ben in for questioning, and he is a former ex-boyfriend of Sarah's. They were planning on meeting up that weekend, and they were texting each other throughout the Friday night, and Ben invited her to join him at another party that he was at, but she never showed up, and the last time that he got a text from Sarah was just simple Ben, and he didn't see that text right away, but he saw it like 20 minutes later, and he's like, what's up? And she never replied. They asked Ben to do a polygraph test, which he said yes to, and also took his DNA. And he was basically cleared. The DNA that they found in Sarah's apartment didn't match Ben, and he also passed the polygraph test. The second guy that they interviewed was also like an ex-boyfriend of Sarah. They went on and on, off again, and according to this guy, he always felt like they would end up together in the future. He was actually working at a bar that night, and he had a solid, people could vouch for him. He also passed the polygraph test, and he was willingly giving his DNA, which didn't match to any DNA that they found in Sarah's apartment. So since the police didn't have any more leads, and that they practically combed over the whole CCTV footage in the surrounding area, outside the club, outside the apartment complex, they couldn't find anything suspicious. So they decided to look through the CCTV footage inside the apartment. And upon looking into the CCTV footage, I don't know why I have such a hard time to say it, it's too much CC to me, too much C's. So at first glance, they didn't see anything suspicious. They basically saw the security guard with Sarah walking like he described. First, she was walking, they could see Sarah first in one CCTV footage. She was like kind of like running up the stairs. And then a few minutes later, the security guard were following her. And then they both went downstairs, just like as he said, to her car. But then a few seconds later, they both come out of the garage, and you could see Sarah heading upstairs to her apartment. And that's pretty much it. But then they rolled the tape further, and then they could see that the security guard around 6:30-ish a.m. was carrying out 2 white trash bags. And this raised some eyebrows. So they actually asked the manager of that building, hey, is it a security's job to throw away trash? And according to the management, no. The security's job is not to throw away any trash or any garbage. If anything, just, if he sees something that should not be there, he can always file that in his report in the morning. Another red flag was that when they first questioned the security guard, he claims that his shift was over at 6 a.m. and he left. But according to the CCTV footage, they could see him carrying out those 2 white trash bags around 6:35 or 6:30-ish a.m. So basically 30 minutes after his shift ended. And upon further inspection, they actually could determine that the white trash bags belonged to Sarah. They were identical to the trash bags that Sarah had in her apartment and was using for trash collection. So this gives police definitely a motive to question the security guard a second time, and they bring him in. So the 33-year-old security guard by the name of Stephen Duxbury is brought up for questioning a second time, and police find out that he's been a security guard at that place for about 15 months. Stephen served in the military. He was married. Him and his wife were married for 3 years. And he was actually honorably discharged from the military. And then him and his wife moved to Orlando. So at this point, police strongly suspects Stephen. So they have him do a lie detecting test. And according to the lie detector test, he failed miserably. Since the public didn't know how Sarah was killed, basically strangled to death, when they asked him, was Sarah poisoned? He said no. Was Sarah shot? He said no. And then when they asked, was Sarah strangled? He answered no. But the lie detector test could clearly sense that it was a lie. Stephen's DNA matched to the 2 fingerprints that police found inside Sarah's home underneath her toilet seat. Also, Stephen's DNA matched to the DNA that they found on top of Sarah's chest. They conducted a search warrant inside Stephen's home, and they found the size 9 shoes that match identically to the footprint that was left inside Sarah's home. Another damning evidence against Stephen: when police confiscated his phone, they could find a Google search that was made around 5 a.m. on how to override a quick keypad lock, the same keypad lock that every unit had in that building. So according to police, Stephen saw a vulnerable drunk girl and he took advantage of the situation. They speculate that after Google search how to override the quick padlock, he unlocked her apartment door, walked in on her while she was in bed, and basically, sexually assaulted her and then beat her and strangled her to death. Stephen was arrested for first-degree murder, sexual assault, and burglary. The trial was held 2 years later in 2017, and he was found guilty and he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Sarah's family have a pending lawsuit against the security guard firm and the padlock company. It should definitely be more stricter rules on background checks, and the padlock system should definitely be not easy. And according to some sources that I read, this type of padlock key system is super easy to open up. You can either, how Stephen did, Google search how to open it, or even use a screwdriver to unlock it. This case is heartbreaking, and my heart definitely goes out to Sarah's family and her loved ones, her friends, that still mourns her loss till this day. And this case should definitely be like a cautionary tale. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I had something similar, not in that extreme that happened to Sarah, but something kind of a similar happened to me, and that made me be very, very aware. Even though if you live in a luxurious apartment complex and you have security guards or have the cameras, you're still not safe. So this happened in 2013, I believe, or it could be 14. So 13, 14. Me and my husband lived at this also like a very high-end apartment complex with a pool, with a gym, security guard at night. And I remember I was at the pool one day and the security guard approached me, and he kind of, very randomly but innocently asked, "Hey, are you in apartment such and such? I don't know, are you in apartment 202? And I said no, and stupidly, naively, I told him what apartment I was in. No, I'm apartment 302, say. I forgot what apartment we had then. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Why?" After I told him my actual apartment, dumbass of me, he's like, "Oh, was a package delivered, and I figured it was for you." Mind you, was no one at the pool, okay? He just randomly came. Now, thinking back at it, just basically came and asked me. He was fishing for where I was living, and naively, I told him that. And mind you, I only been in LA for 2 years then. I just recently moved from Sweden, was still kind of like fresh out of the banana boat, as I say it, and naively thinking in Swedish that everyone is so nice and sweet, and like um, I would definitely never, never, ever tell anyone where I live. I don't care if you have a police badge, security badge. I don't know you. I'm not telling you where I live. So, anyways, later that night, we get a knock on our door, and it's 3 a.m. And I heard the knock, and I go and open the door, and I see the same security guard standing, and he's like, "Oh, hi, sorry to bother you." And I'm like, "What's going on?" At that point, I was kind of irritated because, like, what's going on? Why are you waking me up at 3 a.m., tired as hell? And he's like, "Oh, he hadn't a chance to speak. My husband walked in, and he was like standing right behind me. And as soon as he saw my husband, he was like his demeanor changed completely, and he's like, well, we had a complaint saying that loud noises were coming from this apartment." And both me and my husband look at each other. We're like, we're dead asleep. Like, you could see it in our eyes. My eye bags are hanging to my like my cheeks, like I just woke up. What are you talking about? And clearly you can, if it was loud sound, you could hear it outside the apartment. Like, usually when a complaint is made, the apartment security guard comes and kind of like first listens if the sound comes from the apartment. If it doesn't, he may be not knocking. And he could clearly hear nothing. It was dead as silence, quiet. And he can see in our faces that we literally look like we've been shaking up from our sleep. And then at this point, both me and my husband were super irritated. We're like, "Are you kidding me?" And we're just basically shut the door on his face. We're like, "You woke us up 3 a.m. You clearly don't hear a sound from this apartment coming, any sounds. We're asleep, dead ass asleep. You could see it in our faces." And we literally like shut the door on his. The next morning, I went right down to the management, and I basically told them the whole story from when he approached me at the pool asking for a random package, and then I stupidly told him where I lived, and then he shows up at my doorstep 3 a.m. at night. And then I told him that if it wasn't for my husband, if my husband didn't step into the scene behind me when I opened the door, he probably, I don't know what his motives were. So luckily, the management kicked him out. They told him that they fired him and that he would not be bothering me again. So let this be a cautionary tale for you guys. Just a reminder that anyone can go to Party City, grab a costume of a security guard or police, and pretend to be of higher authority. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this case. If I missed any details of this case, please let me know in the comments below. And if you are about to comment, please make sure it's positive and nice comments. If you don't have nothing else nice to say, just zip it. We don't want to hear it. Keep it to yourself. Thank you so much for spending your time with me on, taking a break from your busy life. Please stay safe. If you have your own horror stories with a security guard or what have you, let me know in the comments below. And stay safe. Love yourself. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on your way out. And see you guys next Friday. Ciao, Cacao.